morning, good afternoon. I'm starting to lose track of time actually. Welcome to this week's episode of the Digital Access Show. Now, we did miss a week last week, but things happen. But the reason I also waited is the guest that we have this week. Our theme for the next month is digital or usable digital communication. What is it? Why is it important? And what can we do? And that's where this week's guest comes in. So this week's guest is Jackie McRae from Copycred. Jackie, thank you for being on here.
Oh, Narelle, thanks for having me. I love talking anything communications and content. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, look, it's great. And just to let you know, you may occasionally hear Jackie's dogs. There's a big storm overhead at Jackie's place. So there's thunder and lightning and all that stuff. And it is coming my way. So we're going to just ignore storms because they're all good. They bring rain, they bring money, and there we go. So, Jackie,
Right on cue.
Jackie, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I have been a communications consultant for 15 years. So in public relations and now more so in communication strategies and content. And so for me, I've actually become a client of yours, Narelle, because I am personally driven by making sure that communications is accessible that's the whole idea of communications. It's one person gives and one person receives. And it's not communication unless there is a receiver on the other end getting that right information. So that's what drives me, is to make sure that it's a two-way street.
Jackie, can you give us a definition of usable digital communication?
Look, to be honest, it's the same as communication. It needs to be accessible, it needs to be understood, and it needs to be clear and concise. And whether that's
Yeah,
in this instance, it's in the digital platform, but that should be the same no matter what platform you're using.
yeah, but people really don't understand the accessibility side of it, do they? Why do you think that? What would be the reasons?
I think it's because of the transition in medium. So we're so
Mm,
used to, in childhood, we're used to writing in our notepads. And then as we've gotten older, we've had social media come about, and then we've had the blogging era. And
mm,
so we keep getting used to new technologies, but not realizing that new technologies comes with a new way to write as well. So I
mm.
think traditionally we are set in our old ways of writing, but need to conform to new ways of actually distributing that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I find a lot of things that I read online probably haven't, or definitely haven't been written for the online reader, or as in your world, obviously around accessibility, making
yeah.
sure that not everybody can read with their eyes and use their mouse. Everyone's using our people use different platforms. So when it comes to accessibility and digital communications, there are more layers to it than just writing what you want to say and hopefully somebody picks it up.
Can you tell us a bit more about the layers and what can we do? I mean, what are the things that as a person writing content that we can do to make it usable?
Absolutely. So I've got five things that I like to look at when I'm writing copy for websites and blog sites and so forth. And then obviously the developers come in and do their work, their magic beyond that. But these five things that anybody can do this when they're writing their content. So I'd like to really start with the first principle of communications is making it clear and concise.
Mm,
So where you can cut out superfluous words, where you can tighten sentences and make sure that things that aren't necessarily aren't there. That's the
mm,
first thing. And getting rid of jargon and all of those complex words that might be appropriate in your industry,
yeah.
that not everybody recognizes. And I think I see that a lot. I see a lot of
Okay.
acronyms being used, jargon being used without any explanation of what that means. So that's the number
Yeah.
one tip, and for all communications, not just digital accessibility.
Okay. And when you think about it, the jargon for us right now would be the dogs barking,
The extra noise and the clutter.
the
That's
extra
right.
noise. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And something I actually have found, and it was actually a tip I got off you when we did our training. I've always written out the full word of something and then abbreviated it in brackets.
Yeah.
Um, but I did forget at the time that people come into a website at different ways and through different channels. So
Mm,
just because the homepage lists it, it means that if I'm on a service page or an about page, I
yeah.
need to write that full sentence out or that full
Yeah.
wording out again and then do it again because they might not have come in from the traditional channel. So it's really important that every page you're on has the consistency of this accessibility.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So yeah, so tip one, use concise, clear language, get rid of the jargon, and
And
make sure the abbreviations are there expanded on every page.
yeah, and to add to that, bullet points where possible, where you can cut out the
Mm,
paragraphs and the sentences, get it to the point, get into nice, concise bullet points. And that's for all readers. Nobody wants to sit and try and find the message in a bunch of noise. Just make it clear for
mm,
people.
love it. What's tip two?
Tip two is our use of page titles on a website. So we can really make sure that this is helping with assistive readers to help the reader know what page they're on and what they're about to read to make sure that they can navigate their way through to what they're looking for. So there's some, instead of just being homepage, it can be your actual organization's homepage in front of it.
Mm,
So your
yeah.
brand homepage. So
Yeah.
somebody always knows where they are. And the next layer to that one is going down to the next step. So your organization's service page, products and descriptions, or whatever that is. It could be if
Yeah.
you're an IT company, computers or
Yeah.
devices or support. So getting very specific at each layer and making sure that the title reflects that.
Actually, that's a good point. Now I'm thinking about our page. I'll have to go and have a look. What's tip three?
Exactly. Tip three is using headlines and structure. So you've got your H1 and your H2 and your H3 title
Yeah.
tags, your headlines, and it's really important to use them again because that formats the page and tells the reader what's coming up and how they can read it. And it should definitely be hierarchical. So it definitely needs to be in order of the most or the largest, like an umbrella, the biggest
Yeah.
thing, and then the next thing, and then down to the most detail if they still want to keep reading. But if you use those headlines and subheadings, that's going to really help with people understanding what page they're on and what the information that they're looking for as well.
How many H1s should you have on the page? Heading ones.
It tells you in the H, you only need one. So
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Because
H1.
I ordered pages and I see pages where there's two or there's three at times. I think,
Mm.
oh,
That gets very confusing for not only the readers but for Google in itself, and you're going to
yeah.
be doing yourself a disservice. So H1, I always say there's only one of them. So H1, and then H2, you can have two if you need to, a couple of those. But I like to do one H1 and one H2, and then I usually do the rest in H3s.
What about in a document? So if you do a document, you'll have a title and then
Yes.
you might have two or three H1s for different sections. How should you do it?
Actually, for a document, I actually do H1s on different pages because it's
Mm,
different reader to websites. I'm thinking websites, but you're right. So in a Word document, H1s do give the hierarchy of what's coming up underneath each one.
okay, that's a good point. Yeah, I just thought about that. So that's tip three. What's tip four?
It's when you're linking to other sites or other pages and making sure it doesn't just say read more here. So
Oh,
assist,
yeah.
you can see you agreeing with that one. So really get descriptive in what you're linking. So you might
Mm,
have read more about installing your device here.
mm,
Link that whole line so that you can actually know exactly where it's going to, and not
mm.
just don't just click on the read more here and leave the rest there. So every hyperlink should be descriptive.
Yeah. Is there a maximum length you reckon you should be for a descriptive link?
I personally like no more than kind of 5 words or so where possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you looks like you've got
Mm.
linking right through. But as long as you can get very clear on that particular piece, and again, if you're following step one, which is to make everything clear and concise, you shouldn't be too verbal or too many words
Mm.
anyway.
Okay, so tip five.
The last one is for your images. So creating alt text for it and helping people actually understand what images are there, and where possible make sure that it actually links, it's not decorative, and make sure it actually has meaning to the content that's beside it. And again, describing what it is. So instead of you know person installing device as the alt text, it might be person plugging in device to start it, or something like that,
Yeah.
to help give more clarity, or whatever, if it's following an instruction, anything like that. I always think just make sure that that can be read and understood in context with what they're reading.
Okay, so those 5 tips that you've given, how do they work together to make a document more usable?
When you've got it all up, then obviously, if anyone's using an assistive reader, then
Mm,
obviously that's all going to help them understand. It's all about navigation and
yeah.
simplicity. It's going to take away the overwhelm of somebody, and the frustration. And it's going to keep people on your website for longer, because they're not going to get frustrated and just jump off and find something else to answer their question. So when it's all together, you're actually helping your reader rather than hindering them.
Okay, but what about the person that would say to you, yeah, Jackie, my clients don't have those problems?
I would say that they don't obviously don't know their clients, because there's a high chance, and disability is more than just vision. It's epilepsy, it's cognitive, it's motor, it's so broad. And I
Yeah.
mean, Narelle, you will know the statistics on
Mm,
people living with
yeah.
disability, but it's very high, and it comes down to just simplicity and accessibility and navigation for everybody, and understanding that every audience will have people with disability, and you don't see them. You don't know who's sitting online at midnight looking at your work, or who's at their workplace struggling to get something that they need. So I think it's all about inclusion and diversity, and actually understanding that there are people that struggle to find information. If you can make that step easier for them, you're going to win a client that you might not have had previously.
And that's a good point. But the other thing too is it really does help the so-called normal person, doesn't it? Because they get a much more well-structured document.
Oh, 100%. And that goes back to point number one, is all communications should be clear and concise and
Yeah.
accessible. So these are just going down to extra layers for those that need to find different avenues to access their information.
Yeah.
But essentially, whether you're writing for somebody with disability or without disability, it should be clear and concise and easy to understand and easy to navigate, regardless of who's on the other end.
Oh, thanks, Jackie. So, what's the takeaway, or is there any more takeaways that you can give after
Uh,
that?
the
Because I don't know. That was brilliant.
the takeaway is really to sit back, read through the copy on whether it's writing for a web page or a document, and asking yourself is, can this be clearer? Can I make this more structured? Is this the best and easiest possible? And could a 7-year-old read it? So if you can ask yourself that sort of question, you will no doubt find words to pull out. You'll no doubt find a new way to structure a list of contents. As long as you can get it to that point, and then use the specs that come to us around the headings and the title tags and all those backends to amplify that a little bit more. But the very first thing is just make it clear.
Jackie, how can people contact you to find out more about what we've just talked about good, useful digital communication?
Yeah, so I'm at Copycred. So my website is www.copycred.com.au, and it's going through a rework at the moment. So hopefully that new one is coming very soon. But they can contact me, have a look at our work there. We work predominantly with service-based businesses, so we really help them with communication strategies, content, and communications.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks very much for your time. And look, if you do want to contact Jackie, I'll also put her contact information on the card at the end of the podcast once it's all edited. Jackie, I hope the storm ends soon for your poor dog's sakes.
Thank you.
And
Sorry for that.
oh, it's all good. It's life, isn't it? It's storm season here. And more to that, if you like what we do, if you like our podcast, please like, share, subscribe, and yeah, definitely share. Give us a review, whatever you can do, because the more people that listen and understand that accessibility helps everyone, the better off we'll be. So we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.